Okay, so these notebooks are so easy and simple to make. I have here just regular printing paper. This is 8.5 by 11. I have 16 sheets of paper, which means that each notebook is going to have 32 pages. I'm folding them in half and then just taking a bone folder to make sure that all of the folds are nice and crisp. You want to do this to each page. Now, a lot of the steps in making these notebooks are very repetitive, so it's a lot of mindless work. So it's a good time to just put on a podcast or a TV show or some music and do these. They're very simple, but they do take a bit of time just because it's a lot of repetitive work. So once all of my pages are folded, I'm going to go ahead and stack them inside each other. So just open them up and put one inside of the other. So once all of my pages are nice and stacked, I'm going to go ahead and open up the folds, and this is just going to make it so that all of the pages fit inside nice and snug. So just opening up that fold and then just folding it back up. I know it sounds like it's the same thing, but honestly it's not. It makes a really big difference to open them up and then fold them again. So as you can see, some of the pages are sticking out, which is totally normal, but we're going to fix this later on. Now here I decided that I wanted my notebook to be a little bit smaller, so I am cutting off 1 inch from the top so that my overall size is 7.5 by 5.5. You can leave the pages as they were. It kind of just depends. I just wanted a bit of a shorter notebook. So now that I know what size I want my notebook to be, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the cover. Here I have some metallic rose gold cardstock. Of course, it looks a little bit copper on video, but trust me, it is rose gold. So the size for my cover is going to be, what is it? Oh, 11 by 7.5. So I'm just going to measure this out and cut it with my X-Acto knife. You can use scissors for this if you want, but I feel like an X-Acto knife just gives me a more precise cut. So because I'm using cardstock for the covers in all of the notebooks that I am making today, I'm going to go ahead and score it. So here is my Martha Stewart mini scoreboard. And I'm taking my bone folder and I'm scoring this right down the center, so at 5.5. And what a scoreboard does, it basically helps you create a fold that is going to help you fold your paper. I hope that makes sense, but sometimes if you notice when you're trying to fold cardstock, a lot of the times it's going to fold a little bit wonky just because it's a thicker paper. So scoring at first just helps you have a nice clean fold. Now it is time to put this together. The first way that I'm going to show you is saddle stitch binding with staples. This is super easy, and yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark on my cover, so this is my cardstock cover, 1 inch from the edge, and then I'm taking my staple and I am marking where the other end of the staple is. So this is basically marking where I need to punch my holes. So again, 1 inch from the edge, from the bottom and from the top. Then I take my staple and mark where the other end of the staple is. Now to find out where I need to put the middle staple, I'm just marking down the center of the cardstock, and then I'm putting my staple right in between so that my mark is in between the staple, and then I am marking the two ends of the staple and that's where I need to punch the holes. So you can take an owl if you have one, but I'm just taking a push pin and I am punching through the holes. And then I'm going to take a piece of paper, and this piece of paper is basically going to be my template for all of the other pieces of paper. So I'm putting it inside of the cover, and from the outside in, I'm going to put my push pin through the holes, piercing through my first piece of paper. So then I'm going to take that piece of paper, and I'm going to take about 3 to 4 sheets at a time, and I'm gonna basically do the same thing until all of my sheets of paper are punched. So here are my staples, and again, they aren't folded. You want to make sure they're nice and straight out, and you want to put it through all of your sheets of paper, starting from the cardstock. So you're doing it from outside in. Once you have all of your sheets into that first staple, you want to take something blunt and push the ends of the staple inward. You don't want to use your fingers because it is very sharp and it's a little bit difficult to do with your fingers, so please be careful and use something nice and blunt. So here is the first finished notebook. Again, it's very simple to do, especially with the staples. And the last thing we have to do actually is to cut out all of those edges that are kind of hanging out. You can leave them if you want, but I like it to be cut out nice and flush to my cover. So I'm taking a straight edge and my X-Acto knife and I'm cutting out all of the excess. Don't try to cut through all of the layers at once because that's going to be very difficult. Just do it one layer at a time, just like this, and you will eventually get through the bottom. Just be very patient. If you see that some of the edges are still rough, you can take some light sandpaper or a fine grit sandpaper and just sand it out a little bit until it's nice and smooth. So the second kind of notebook that we are making is a saddle stitch notebook with thread. So here I have my rose gold glitter paper. I love this one too. It's so pretty. It does look a little bit more pink on camera, but I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the first steps from the first notebook. So I have my cover cut out and folded, and all of my sheets of paper are cut out to the size that I need. And now I am marking where I'm going to punch my holes. So I am making them 1 inch apart. So for saddle stitch binding with thread, I like to have my holes be an odd number. I don't know why, I just feel like odd numbers work best for this. But once you have your holes and you've punched them through, you want to punch them through all of your other sheets of paper. So for binding, I'm going to use some black embroidery floss with an embroidery needle, and I'm going to go ahead and start from the middle hole. Now I have not knotted my thread. There's no knot at the end, and I'm going to do a 1 thread stitch. So again, start from the inside and start from the middle hole. So basically we are going to be doing a running stitch all the way to one edge. So once you reach the edge, you're basically going to do a back stitch back to the middle. What a back stitch is basically we are filling in those gaps. So you will pull your thread through the nearest hole of your last stitch. When you get back to the middle, you're going to do a running stitch all the way to the other edge. And then when you get to the other edge, you will do a back stitch back to the middle. So if you have an odd number of holes, then this is how your threads are going to end up. I think they should end up like this if you have an even number of holes, but anyways, the thread that is coming out towards the front of the notebook, you are going to make a small knot, and then with your needle, you are going to go ahead and put your needle through that hole and kind of pull the knot towards the inside of the notebook. And then from here, you're just going to go ahead and do another knot just to make sure everything is nice and tight and secure. One tip that I do have is to make sure that when you are sewing this book, make sure that you are pulling nice and tight so that all your pages are nice and tight onto this notebook. Now I did a couple of knots because I'm just that type of person. I need to make sure that everything is nicely secured. But then you just want to go ahead and cut the extra thread, bend down your notebook, and this is done. So now we're going to go ahead and start decorating this notebook, the front of it. I'm going to show you guys two designs, but they're basically almost the same techniques, but there are endless ways that you can decorate your personalized notebooks. You can use different paper. It's pretty great. Now for this foiled notebook, I did use some painter's tape so that I could write in a straight line so that my words were straight. This was a big mistake for this special paper because when I peeled off the blue tape, it kind of lifted up the foil a little bit and it created bubbles that you'll be able to see later. So I'm using some Recollections black embossing powder and some Letter It embossing markers. What the markers are, they're basically clear markers. It has clear ink that dries very slow, so it's perfect for embossing. It's really hard to see what I'm doing now, and so it was really hard to see in person as well what I was writing because the ink is clear, but this is kind of my favorite part because you can see the letters. You want to put your embossing powder on top and then kind of tap off the excess. One thing that I did want to note is that when you are using embossing powders, it is a good idea to use an anti-static tool. It's basically very light white powder that is going to help your embossing powder stick only to where you apply the ink. So I had to use a brush to get rid of all the extra powder, and here I am using my heat tool to heat set the embossing powder. So as you can see, this was my rose gold princess notebook. I love rose gold. I don't want to be a hipster, but I just want to say I've loved rose gold even before it was super popular. But anyways, yeah, and so this is the next notebook that I did. And it says, if you can dream it, you can do it. And it has two little Mickeys, and it's basically the same thing. The only thing that I did different was that I used some glossy accents by the brand Ranger. And what this is, it's kind of a clear coat that dries raised. So it will dry a little bit bubbly, which is really nice if you want to add some shine and texture to different parts of your design. So these are the notebooks that I made. I have my two rose gold notebooks, and on this rose gold princess one, you could almost see that bubble that happened because of the tape. I'm still upset about it, but that's okay. Something cool that you could also do is that if you don't want to decorate your own notebooks, you can find all types of printed cardstock at the craft store. I found this really cool Mickey Mouse cardstock. It is by the brand Cricut, and it was made for Cricut machines. That's how it was marketed, but it's basically just cardstock, and it's just really perfect for these notebooks. And I just loved it so much because I love craft paper, like that brown craft paper with the black ink. I just think it's so beautiful. So yeah, that's a really good tip, I think, because if you don't want to decorate your notebooks, you don't have to. And these notebooks also make really great gifts, so I do recommend that you try them out. Yeah, so I'm going to do a quick little giveaway in this video. If you've made it this far, I'm giving away these two Mickey and Minnie craft paper notebooks made by me. And all you have to do is leave a comment down below and let's see, you can tell me what you love most about Mickey and Minnie, and also follow me on Instagram and let me know what your Instagram handle is so that I can make sure that you're following. And that is it. The giveaway will end in 1 week, but all of this will be listed in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you and I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!